that's the one that was really impactful for me.
Cattle Call Podcast. How does that sound live?
It's awesome.
You like that?
Oh yeah, I've never heard it
Man.
live now.
Never been live. Now you're it. You heard it. You
I'm
heard
here.
the intro. This is it. We got honestly, I'd probably say a day one fan.
Yeah, day
A
one.
pre-day one fan, because I've talked with you about podcasting for a couple years prior to starting Cattle Call.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
want to introduce yourself or you want me to do it?
Oh yeah, you got it.
Man, Michael Thomas, not the wide receiver for years.
Not the wide receiver for the Saints, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was Michael Thomas, and now it's like Michael Thomas, not Michael Thomas, but a cool Michael Thomas.
You might have to put me as Mike Thomas on this podcast,
Mike.
just so you don't disappoint your fans.
Yeah, what's your middle name?
Terry.
Is it actually Terry? Okay.
Yeah.
Mike Terry.
Yeah.
Mike Terry Thomas.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Michael, how are you?
Doing great, man. Great to be here.
Dude, it doesn't get much better than this.
It really doesn't.
Man, look at what we're doing.
Yeah.
We are outside at, oh gosh, what is it? About 10:20
Yeah.
on
About
a Saturday
10:20.
night.
Yep.
We just had authentic Mexican dinner,
Very authentic.
fresh guacamole,
Fresh guac. Yep.
and Taco Bell power menu bowls.
That's what I was talking about when I meant real Mexican, like fresh. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
it doesn't get much
Taco
It
Bell.
doesn't get much fresher than that right there, man.
The Power Bowl.
The Power Bowl, and we're smoking cigars and we're drinking whiskey.
Yep.
And we're recording a podcast.
We are.
Man, Michael, how are you?
Doing great, man. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Longtime fan of the show,
Dude.
You know.
Yeah, you might be the first guy on who's actually like an avid Cattle Call and podcast listener. You're a big
Yeah,
podcast guy.
I am a podcast guy for sure. Yeah. Love podcasts.
Man, what podcast do you like?
Big fan of obviously the Joe Rogan Experience. I love JRE. Big fan of that. But I also got a shout out to Stuff You Should Know in Atlanta. Chuck Bryant and Josh Clark. Those guys are awesome. So got a shout out to them too. But yeah, love podcasts.
Big podcast guy. Michael, what is it you do?
What is it that I do? Well,
Before you sprained your ankle.
I am in a boot right now, which is unfortunate. Well, I coach at a CrossFit gym, CrossFit Nashville. Let's shout out to them real quick.
CrossFit Nashville.
CrossFit Nashville. So if you don't know, CrossFit, most people view it as a cult.
Yeah.
Which is fair. That's okay. Because most people don't know really what it is.
Yeah.
It's basically it is a exercise methodology, which is functional fitness, which is you're doing things that you would use in everyday life.
Okay.
So you're not just at the Y doing machines. You're actually doing free weights and machines or you're doing free weights and not machines. So you're doing functional fitness. So, I love CrossFit, and I've been doing it for 5 years now.
Man, how did you get into CrossFit?
So
And why?
My dad actually, it was so random. One night, this is after high school football. So my high school football days were over. So this is the spring of my senior year of high school. And I was not going to run track anymore because I really only ran track for football.
Okay.
So my favorite part of football was always the weight room, always. And my dad kind of knew that, and I did P90X in January and February of 2016, and hated it. Hated
Really?
every second of it. I thought it was so dumb, and I didn't enjoy it really at all. But one night, my dad peeked his head in my room and said, "Hey, I'm going to a CrossFit gym tonight. Would you like to come with me?" And this is literally at like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, like I'm going. You want to come with me?" So we go to CrossFit Nashville, and we go to what's called the intro class. So you do 3 intro classes before you actually jump into just your regular CrossFit class. So we want to make sure that you have the basics, the fundamentals. We don't want you to hurt yourself. We want you to be well educated on the movements. But yeah, and so we went there, and I hated it. I hated every second of it. I thought it was dumb. I was like, but I walked in there with a pretty big ego. Like, I'm a high school football player, really strong, ran track pretty fast. I'm in good shape, and I go in there and I do a 12-minute workout.
That's all it was?
12 minutes.
Wow.
And it put me in the dirt unlike anything I had ever experienced in my entire life.
Was it one circuit at 12 minutes, or was it multiple circuits?
It was literally, I think the workout was 12 rounds, a 200-meter run, something like, I don't know, five pull-ups, something like 10 burpees and 15 air squats for time. Or so, I don't even recall what the workout was now, but it was just literally like one of the most basic workouts you can do. And I just remember I was crushed. I was just destroyed after it. And I was like, this is so dumb. I'm not even coming back for the next intro class. Well, I come back the next night, of course. And I keep coming back. And, I start CrossFit. And, for the first few months, I did a class or maybe 2 a week. And I enjoyed it. I mean, it was much more of a humbling experience, because I vividly remember a guy who was like in his 30s, and I think I was 18 or 19 at the time. A guy who was in his like mid 30s, who was like a dad, just destroyed me in this workout.
Did he look ripped?
No,
he looked like a regular.
He looked
dad.
He looked like
a minivan dad.
He looked like your regular, average, in shape male.
Yeah.
And he just destroyed me in this workout, and I mean, not even just kind of destroyed me, big time.
Yeah.
Like lapped me in whatever workout we were doing. And I remember thinking, like, this is just the dumbest. Yeah. This is the dumbest thing ever. Like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And there's something about just getting crushed like that brings you into the door the next day.
Yeah. It's a chance to get better.
I mean, yeah, it's a challenge almost, like I had never felt before. And so, 2 times a week turned into 3 times a week, and 3 times a week turned into a full-time membership, which is,
oh, wow.
5 days a week minimum, and, whatever. And, or it goes from 3 days a week to unlimited.
Okay.
So I got the unlimited, plan, and, I went from that to, within a year I was doing, a little bit of extra stuff, trying to get better, not just doing the class, not just doing the class WOD. We call it a WOD, workout of the day, for people who don't know what that is. And it was super fun, and I learned so much and was humbled so much in that first year. And it's like an addiction, man. It really is. You just start it, and you're like, wow, you just feel so much better after that workout. Just that dopamine release when you're just like done. You're like, man, that was just awesome. And I think that's why so many people buy into CrossFit and love it so much. Is just because the community. Let's just talk about that first and foremost. That is before we talk about anything else in CrossFit. Let's talk about the community, because that is the most important thing. The community that we have is incredible. I mean, literally, some of my best friends in the world are my friends at CrossFit. It's not even close. And, there's something profound when you suffer with other people.
Yeah.
There's something that happens, and I really enjoyed that from the beginning. Like those relationships that grew over time. That was something that I really enjoyed. And now that I'm 5 years in, those relationships have turned into some of my best friends. And I could not be more thankful to CrossFit Nashville, CrossFit in general. And it is an amazing, life-changing methodology if you choose to dive into it.
So would you recommend somebody that wants to get into working out or wants to get back into working out, and they're looking for a little bit of motivation, of doing something like CrossFit, because you do have that community around you, rather than you just waking up at 5:30 and going to the gym on your own, and developing a community there?
Here's what I would say. Community is the number one thing. Community is so important, because one thing that I've heard a lot from the coaches at CrossFit Nashville, whenever I'm a coach now. I coach at
Okay.
CrossFit
How long
Nashville.
you been a coach?
I started coaching this past spring, I think.
Okay.
But I've really, really enjoyed coaching and getting to know the members and helping them, and like, the reward of like getting someone their first muscle up and like that kind of thing is just amazing. But I mean, community is just so important. In the hardest part is just getting in the parking lot most days. So, what gets you into the parking lot is that community for me. On days that you're just sore, you feel terrible, you don't want to go into the gym, you're tired, you had a bad day or something, but you know that you're going to pull into the parking lot and you're going to see those friends when you walk into the door. You're all going to suffer together. It's going to be fun. You're going to do it. Everyone, it's a collective effort. And that's what keeps a lot of people coming back, because you know what, if you worked out alone every day, there just wouldn't be that same spark. It just wouldn't be. Yeah. So if I was talking to someone who's wanting to get back into shape or whatever, I would say the number one thing you should look for is just find a workout partner, find a workout buddy. You don't have to go into a CrossFit gym. I love CrossFit, so I would recommend it to anyone. But I don't care if it's Pure Barre, yoga, Orange Theory, CrossFit, or if it's just you finding your buddy and y'all go on morning runs in your neighborhood. You and your neighbor go on morning runs. That's all you need to find, is that community, and just take the first steps, take those baby steps. And that's what you should focus on first. Don't try and dive into the deep end of the pool, because it's just not going to be fun. That sink or swim is not fun, and a lot of people burn out. That's why the New Year's resolution people,
Man,
that's why a lot of them burn out. Just take baby steps. Don't go from 0 to 100. Start from where you're at.
Gotcha. Now let's talk about what you did prior to this.
Okay.
So you just graduated from college.
Correct. Yeah.
And what did you go to college for?
I was an fitness and sports studies major. Yep. So basically exercise science, but a little bit geared more towards the human body.
Okay.
Yeah. So kinesiology department. Super fun. Enjoyed my major. Yeah. Went to Lipscomb University. No complaints there.
Not just Lipscomb University. You're Lipscomb through and through, man.
I am, unfortunately.
Yeah.
No. I'm a lifer. Yeah. I've gone through Lipscomb all through grade school, and I actually did end up going there for college as well. So yeah, I am a true lifer. Yeah.
Yeah. Except for the one summer in Alabama.
Correct. Yeah.
So what'd you do there?
Yeah. So not this past summer, but the summer before. I was a strength and conditioning intern at the University of Alabama. And what I did there, my main role was I was one of the strength and conditioning interns for the football program. Now, granted, I worked with some other programs on the side, like track and field, even swimming and diving some, but it was mainly football. And my main responsibility when I showed up was they put me with quarterbacks, was my number one priority. And I worked with Coach Josh Hampton, who was incredible, amazing coach. He is actually like the quarterback strength conditioning coach. He was in charge of them. But then I also had tight ends and linebackers throughout the day as well. But yeah, so I did have the privilege of working with Tua and Mac Jones and Tua's younger brother, who is now at Maryland and doing incredible.
Right.
Yeah, Talia, he is an amazing guy as well. But yeah, Braxton Barker, who's still at Alabama, who is the son of the '90s quarterback who won them a national title. But yeah, it was a lot of fun getting to know all the guys on the team, and it was a super fun experience. I had a lot of fun. Very eye-opening experience for sure.
Did you interact with Coach Saban at all?
I did not.
No, not even like a handshake one time, or
No. I did see. I mean, you see him. You'll see Coach Saban from time to time, but I mean, when he walks in the room, it's almost like Jesus walking in the room.
It's like, do you feel the air pressure change?
You do
before you see him. Yeah.
Yeah. There's like atmospheres of pressure that enter the room along with Saban. Yeah. There's definitely everyone kind of. Holds their breath when he walks in the room. He is a polarizing figure, but man, does that guy love his players.
Really?
That is the one thing I can say from that summer is man, those players would walk the plank for Coach Saban, and he would do the same for them. And that's
great to hear. Yeah.
It is a beautiful relationship he has with his players. Yeah, it is very, very cool, very unique.
Man, and so I would say you kind of have ties to the SEC through your family, in a way. You have a very unique view of the SEC and especially football, college football as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about that a little bit of your background and your family and all that?
Well, yeah. Last year, my dad retired from a 25-year, very successful career as an SEC football official. He was a head linesman. He had a great career. He actually had a national championship game.
Which one?
He had the Oklahoma USC game with Thunder and Lightning. Back in the day, I actually went to it. I believe that was it 2005 or maybe 2006. But it was awesome. I got to see Reggie Bush and gosh,
Lindell White.
Yeah. It was amazing. But yeah, he had the national championship game, had an extremely successful career, he ended up retiring. He's a granddad now, so
Yeah, he is.
That kind of comes with the territory. But yeah, so I grew up going to SEC games. I believe I've been to every SEC stadium except Missouri because they're a little bit newer.
Yeah,
I've been to A&M though. College, yeah.
Kyle Field, you like it?
Kyle Field's amazing, yeah.
You ever see Manziel?
Incredible. I did see Manziel in person at Ole Miss. He beat Ole Miss at Ole Miss.
Uh-huh.
And
was it 2013? Do you remember? Man. Is it where he threw that corner route touchdown?
I think so.
Pretty much seal the game.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what happened that game. Oh, I'll have to remember his name. I remember his name. I hope I get this right. So I'm sitting there.
This is in Oxford.
And I'm sitting there, and obviously Johnny Football is
the
man at the time, and A&M's killing Ole Miss. It's a good game, but they're winning, and about I want to say it was the third or fourth quarter. I'm sitting in the SEC section, right, and I'm actually sitting next to one of my high school football coaches, Coach Taylor. Who is a lifelong Ole Miss fan, and my dad gave him one of the tickets because he only has a couple tickets each game. So we're sitting there, and this dude with a buzz cut and a gigantic ring on his right hand comes into our section, right? And people are losing their minds, screaming, wanting his autograph. Like people are like going nuts. And we're like, what is going on? And this dude literally passes right in front of me. Like, he, brushes in front of me. I mean, he is drunk and, having a big old time. Long story short, it's Marshall Henderson.
The
basketball player. And I didn't recognize him because, when he did all that stuff, he had that gross hair. He had that longer, that big old head of hair or whatever he had. And he had buzzed it. So man. I didn't recognize him. But, I mean, he was a god there in Oxford. But yeah, that I've seen pretty much all of it.
Yeah.
The craziest for sure is Death Valley at night. If anyone's wondering.
No kidding.
Yeah, for sure.
No kidding. So you would not want to play at LSU
at a night game
as an opponent.
That would probably be the toughest environment, I would say. Yeah.
No kidding. Okay, now why do you say that? The
volume. The volume.
Really?
I mean. The volume for one, and the passion of the fans too. Let me tell you something about
Go Tigers.
Yeah, go Tigers. The passion of the fans is just incredible. I mean, I remember, man, it was like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years ago. I went to the Auburn LSU game, and remember, back in the day, the earthquake game was Auburn LSU. And actually, my grandfather had that game. He was an official in that game. Side note, but this is a huge rivalry. Tigers versus Tigers.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big rivalry, and it was a 7 o'clock kickoff or something like that. And when I tell you, like, I've lived in Nashville my whole life, I've been to lots of concerts, you know, loud environments. That was without a doubt probably the loudest environment I've been in. Like, it was deafening. Yeah, deafening. It was so cool. You know, and I was, you know, just blown away. And this was when the Honey Badger was at the height of his powers.
Oh, go Chiefs. Oh, we love the Honey Badger.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I root for the Chiefs too. I'm a huge Mahomes fan. You know, I know you're an actual Chiefs fan. I just root for some players in the NFL. I'm a big Mahomes and Tyreek Hill fan.
Yeah, and honestly, and Honey Badger, he really is the Mahomes of the defense.
He is. He is.
He doesn't get the respect because he's not the huge player on the team. But I mean, that dude is a leader, man, and he really doesn't miss tackles. I couldn't imagine watching him in college when he was arguably, I mean, better overall. He was more versatile.
He was up for the Heisman.
Yeah,
he was up for the Heisman as a defensive player. When you're up for the Heisman as a defensive player, that's a huge deal.
And he was a big return specialist too.
Oh yeah. He's awesome. He was awesome, but dude, there's just something about like that you know, when I was in the stands and when these Cajuns get ready for a 7 o'clock kickoff, they start drinking at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I mean, these people, the day before, these people are murdered drunk. Okay, and I'm sitting there. I'm actually alone. I don't have anyone else. I am alone. I don't have other officials' wives or anything. I'm pretty much alone in the stadium. Like, I don't know anyone, and so I'm literally just taking everything, and I have no one to talk to almost. And they start playing Callin' Baton Rouge, which is the song that they stormed the field to. Dude, I'm telling you, it was the loudest. Dude, it was so loud. It was so. I mean, it was awesome. It was awesome. But yeah, if I were to say the craziest environment would be Death Valley at night. Yeah. So I guess shout out to any LSU fans out there, but yeah, it's pretty special. Yeah.
Man. So even going to all those different environments, go to different campuses, and kind of seeing the inner workings of what makes the SEC, and really it is football. It's not just sport. I mean, it is football. You don't want to go to an SEC college? You know,
I really thought about it. And I really was pretty dead set against going to a smaller school like Lipscomb specifically. But when I got to be a senior, I kind of realized that the state school environment wasn't really for me. I didn't really want to, I don't want to say subject myself to that, but it just wasn't my personality. So I looked at Harding University in Searcy, Belmont University here in Nashville, and Lipscomb University. And Lipscomb was at the bottom of my list.
Yeah.
After I toured all three, I really liked Belmont and I really liked Lipscomb, but I mean, at the end of the day, it came down to like, I had more friends and knew more people that were going to Lipscomb, and I had a ton more of academic scholarship for Lipscomb. Yeah. I really did. And
Belmont's already expensive as it is.
Yeah. So it really came down to that, and man, it just really seemed like a God thing, man. It couldn't have worked out better. You know, I loved my 4 years at Lipscomb, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So yeah.
Cool, man. All right, so what else are you interested in? Let's get into it. So a quick backstory a little bit on Michael.
Okay.
And how we know each other.
Yeah. Let's get into that a little bit.
Okay, to this day, it's something that we've done now. This is our 9th year.
9th year, yeah.
And I had breakfast. Oh gosh, it was yesterday. It feels like a week ago. I had breakfast with two of my friends, their sisters, in Memphis yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked something about. I was going home. I had to be home by today. And I don't know how it came up. And I said, well, for my cotillion job in Nashville. And they're like, what's cotillion? I swear everyone knows this.
Yeah.
That I do this.
You think everyone knows it.
Yeah, like, you should know cotillion. Well, you think that. You should. And then you start talking, and then I go, I'm sure I've mentioned it at some point in passing. And about every time I bring it up, people go, oh, I didn't know you did that. What, you do that?
Yeah.
So number one, how would you define cotillion? And then I can talk about how we kind of know each other.
Well, number one, I would say it's basically ballroom dancing. I mean, that is probably the number one thing we do is ballroom dancing. We do teach manners. It is a manners course. It is, etiquette, how to treat a lady, how to conduct yourself at a nice meal, at a dinner,
Right.
all those things. But I mean, dude, how do you describe it? I mean, it is literally, we have kids
They're
and
6th and 7th graders.
yeah, and we teach them etiquette, and it is not. It is actually just as difficult as it sounds.
Yeah. and COVID helped us out a ton because now we're not looking at 120 kids a class. It's 30.
Yeah, and they're not allowed to touch each other.
Yeah, and which is, they didn't want to, but we had to force them before.
Yeah.
You're pretty much making a bunch of 6th and 7th graders not try to be interested, but to try to help their hour and a half class fly by because they don't want to be there. They wouldn't be there if you paid them.
And if they're misbehaving, you don't want them
you
to
don't
be
want
there.
them there. Yeah, like they're a hindrance at that point.
Right.
And the thing about 126th graders in the room is there's not one of them misbehaving. There's half of them misbehaving.
Yeah. Because if one misbehaves, they feed off the other like a
go,
virus.
Oh, yeah. They go, oh, wait, so that flies.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. All I know is when my kids are of that age, I'm going to be father of the year.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to hand them over to my wife for the first 11 years. Let me have them for these 2 years. I know exactly what I'm doing. And then after that, back to the wife or to military school. One of the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we do cotillion.
We do cotillion, yeah. And that's how we got to know each other. That's where we met each other. And
turns out we went to Lipscomb for a couple years together, but didn't know each other.
You were in the grade above me.
Probably.
Yeah, you were. You were in the grade above me. I actually have here in
the yearbook.
I have the yearbook here. We might actually bring it out later. We might have to.
We might have to.
But I have it here. Yeah, you were in the grade above me. But yeah, you went to Independence, and I went to Lipscomb.
Yeah.
Actually, I went to Lipscomb Academy, not David Lipscomb. I almost said David Lipscomb because I went to David Lipscomb until I think 8th grade. Then they changed the name or something. Whatever. Yeah.
David Lipscomb. Yeah, because that's when it was. I was there. David Lipscomb.
Yeah, David Lipscomb. That's the way. That's the way I almost say it. That's the way I instinctively say it is David Lipscomb.
David Lipscomb.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now we do cotillion, and one reason we've always kind of hit it off. Of course, you look at the spiritual side of things. We're both Christians. We like talking about substantial things, and Michael and I have spent, I would say, the bulk of most Saturday nights after cotillion. Again, we only get to do cotillion once a month.
Right.
So it's usually when we don't have plans, we're going to hang out together. And we spent the bulk of those Saturday nights the last, 4 or 5 years?
Oh, yeah.
Smoking cigars afterwards. And we talk about stuff.
Doing what we're doing right now.
Exactly what we're doing right now.
But we're doing it recorded now.
Yeah. You should have heard the conversation we had before this.
We talked for like an hour before this.
Easy. And I remember one time, I don't know if we were here smoking or if we were at a lounge, but I remember talking about how I wanted to do start like a new interview series of some sort. And I thought maybe be writing, and I thought, no, I need to develop into a different platform. And that's when my buddy Austin and I did a podcast a little bit later. And I thought, okay, I made to do a podcast. And I remember talking with you one time, and we talked through CrossFit and how you wanted to do something as almost like a ministry in your own model of CrossFit, of it being more than fitness. I thought, man, that would be cool to have something like a podcast where I interview people, and like I'd have Michael on and we would talk through that. Yeah. And I would ask you certain questions because we both like philosophy, we like history. Yeah. We like stand-up comedy.
We do love stand-up comedy.
And you've gotten me more into like movies and TV shows. Yeah. Because you're a huge, I wouldn't even say connoisseur. It's like, it's beyond that. It's like a buff or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you love. So we got to talk. We got a ton to talk about. We do. We got a ton to talk about.
Yeah. We've already talked about CrossFit. We've already talked about some stuff. Yeah.
Talk about, before we get into the meaty issues here. Talk about what you would like to do with CrossFit in the future, if you still have that vision that you had a couple years ago.
Absolutely.
About how you want to develop it into something.
Yeah. So obviously, like I was saying earlier, like CrossFit is a huge passion of mine. And CrossFit's one of those things that I see myself doing for the rest of my life. And
except for right now in your boot.
Yeah, except for right now. Well, I did CrossFit to an extent yesterday.
That's the boot.
Yeah. but yeah, it's something that everyone can do, and that's why I love it. It's so inclusive. People, something that honestly is probably a pretty good thing for me to go ahead and say here is a lot of people probably watched the CrossFit Games recently. If you didn't catch them, they were on CBS Sports.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and they just were on about a month ago. And maybe some of your listeners saw it, maybe they didn't. And maybe they have seen previous years of the CrossFit Games or something like that. The CrossFit Games are a beautiful, beautiful representation of what CrossFit can be. And the way I would describe it is a lot of people look at the CrossFit Games and may or may not be intimidated. What I would say is when you're watching those people on TV, when you're watching Matt Frazier, Rich Froning, Tia Toomey, all these people, you're watching the NBA All-Star Game. Like you're watching the absolute best of the best. Like you are watching the pinnacle of the sport. And when you walk into your local CrossFit box, wherever you are in the country or in the world, there's probably a CrossFit box near you. And whenever you walk in there, it's not the NBA All-Star Game. It's people playing pickup basketball, okay? And it is a beautiful, beautiful community of people that work together to better themselves and try and better the people around them every day. And that's what's beautiful about it. So the CrossFit Games are awesome because it's the sport aspect of what we do, but it's not all of what it is. So, I mean, I feel like that's a pretty important thing just to hit right off the bat. But, yeah, there's a lot of ministry opportunity with CrossFit, and the first person I would point to would be Rich Froning, right here in Tennessee, in Cookeville. Rich is a devout Christian, and is a amazing example for so many people. And he really does so many like philanthropy events and fundraisers and things. I mean, like even when there was the tornado that hit, that hit Cookeville, he had a fundraiser event just for that and help people in his community. And he does it all in the name of God and things like that. So, there is a huge market for that in the CrossFit community because people in CrossFit, they not only want to like better themselves, they want to better people around them. So I think that's a really big thing when it comes to like CrossFit and especially like with those like philanthropy things and like bettering your own community. Mm-hmm. I feel like most people in the CrossFit space want to do that. Yeah.
So you want to do more community involvement,
right? Yeah. I would love to. I'd love to. Yeah. But I mean, again, that could be years down the road or not. But yeah, it kind of is whatever, God puts in my path. So.
Man. All right. Let's talk about real quickly. I always like this story. I think about it. It's not a very, very happy story. Okay. But it's when you studied abroad.
Oh, okay.
Where all did you go? And then talk about, did you go to Auschwitz? Where did you go?
Yeah. When I studied abroad, so interesting. So I studied abroad my sophomore year of college. And I would say, to say I was green behind the ears as to the rest of the world would be a vast understatement.
You're born and raised in Nashville, right?
Yeah, born and raised in Nashville.
Family's here, been to school here.
I had been to London for a week prior to this, and that was really my only out of the U.S. experience.
Okay.
I think I'd been to the Bahamas maybe once. I don't know. I don't even remember. But I studied abroad, and I went to so many countries, like maybe 15 different countries. I studied abroad in Vienna, Austria, which I believe is the most beautiful city in all of Europe. Shout out Vienna, Austria.
I don't think I have any listeners there.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day, yeah.
It is a beautiful city. I highly recommend it to anyone looking to travel. I love Vienna, but... I actually did go to Auschwitz. Yeah, I did. And that was...
Is it in Poland? Where's Auschwitz?
Poland, yeah.
Okay.
I went to Auschwitz 1 and Auschwitz 2, which they're very, very close to each other. Auschwitz 1 is pretty famous. They still have like the gas chambers intact and a lot of the a lot of the barracks and stuff are still up, but it's the smaller one. It's kind of like the the one that you see on pictures a lot, like with the gate that says the words in German above it.
Do you remember what they say?
I don't remember. I think
just
it's something very bleak. I think it's like abandoned hope or something. It's something very bleak, something very awful. But Auschwitz II is the one that stands out in my mind. That's the one that I really like. When I think of Auschwitz, that's what I think of. That's the one that was really impactful for me. So we went to Auschwitz I, and clearly it's very, it's heavy. It's very heavy. Mm-hmm. There's no jokes or smiles or anything. There's like everyone's quiet and respectful. Auschwitz I is where you go and you see the shoes. You see the hair, of the people of the Jews that were taken, and that is it just hits you. It hits you very, very hard. And then you go to Auschwitz II and you see the magnitude of it. You see the actual size of it. And that's the one with the famous train station.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the one where I walked into it, and it's as far as you can see the barracks, as far as you can see. And at the very back, there are these trees, and they don't look huge. But, like, you start walking, and by the time you get to the back of Auschwitz II, these trees are just massive. They're huge. Like, I mean, this thing goes on forever. And it really, like, it hits you in a whole different way when you see the number of barracks. And, like, even the barracks that aren't there anymore that got torn down, like, that were there, though, you see the property, and, like, is, like, to your left, to your right, in front of you, behind you. It's as far as you can see. And it's just like, man, this was the largest, like, one of the largest systematic genocides in human history.
Yeah.
And it happened less than 100 years ago. And that is, it really hits you. And I remember I even, I didn't really, I remember getting back to my hotel that night, and I called my dad and just, like, talked to him about it, because he had been to Auschwitz before. And
oh, yeah?
Yeah. And he remembers some of those same feelings that I had. He was just telling me about, how he felt about it when he was there. And
how long ago did he go prior to you?
Man,
do you remember?
Man, goodness. He probably went there 20 years before I did.
Okay.
Yeah. He was there, with my mom, a while ago. But yeah, Auschwitz is, man, one of the most, if not the most impactful places and experiences I had while I was abroad. Yeah.
Does something like that make you doubt your faith, or at least challenge your thinking?
That's a good question. I would say it definitely it questions my thinking. It questions my faith in humanity, I would say, is the best way to put that. Because it showed me for possibly the first time in my life, it showed me what humans are capable of doing to one another in the most sinister of ways. And that is a really dark place to go.
Yeah.
And it's a place that, I mean, I feel like most adults understand and can, comprehend in a way. But, when you're young like that and you haven't really experienced much of the world, and then you experience that for the first time, and you see and you hear the stories about, like, these independent stories, and I'm not going to go into them, but the tour guides that tell you stories of true stories that just make your skin crawl, that you're like, how can people be so cruel to one another? How can there be so much evil in someone's heart?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it made me question my faith or anything. It really almost just made me have an appreciation for the presence of evil in the world. I feel like it made me understand, like, hey, there's good in the world, and of course we all know about the good in the world, but there's true evil too. Yeah, there is a contrast for sure. Like,
man, Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Is there anything that you've seen? I mean, that like in your life that's made you question your faith, or at least made you, or at least opened your eyes to what evil might be in the world.
Trying to think. Kind of like come to mind. Been to the 9/11 museum in New York. It's unbelievable. I love museums. You know, of course, you and I love history, and love art and stuff. So museums are great. That was one where when we were in New York, we were action packed. We had these windows of what we were going to do during what times. Mom's very good about that. We had 7 hours of our day in the 9/11 museum. It was like our day was gone. And I wear a watch every day.
Yeah.
It's like you're so wrapped up in it, you don't bother look. You just keep going, keep going, keep going.
Yeah.
And from an architectural standpoint, it's unbelievable. It's mostly underground. They use a lot of the big retention walls. They're called slurry walls that were in the foundation of the original towers. They have salvaged those, and those are actual parts of the walls to the 9/11 museum. And a lot of it's very, very contemporary. Beautiful. I hope it won every award, like design award it was ever up for. But seeing that, because that was so somber, and also, too, that hit close to home because that's here in America. And New York's an unbelievable city. I think it's the greatest city on the planet. I haven't been to Jerusalem yet, but I think it's the greatest city on the planet. And that was one where you're like, wow, this happened here. And I remember, I don't remember exactly the day. I was 5 years old. I remember at a baseball game that night, and I was watching the news, and I was in my uniform, sitting in the living room with my bat and my mitt over the end of my bat. And I'm watching the news, and they're talking about, that's a recap of the day, and the towers are smoking. Of course, they've fallen at that point. Yeah. That's really all I really remember about 9/11. That was pretty big. I went to the Genocide Museum in Rwanda.
Ooh, wow.
Because that was one where, so both of those.
Talk about that a little bit. The Genocide Museum in Rwanda. I want to hear about that.
Man, that was pretty crazy because one thing about like with Hitler and like Mein Kampf, just all of it,
right?
How efficiently and quietly they were able to just massacre Jews. It was, in a way, I don't know if it was at the same rate as Rwanda. It was like, if I remember right, it was 1 million people killed in 100 days. And the thing is, Rwanda is a third of the size of the state of Tennessee. Rwanda's not a big country.
Yeah.
And their main city, the capital's Kigali. And honestly, like, it feels smaller than downtown Chattanooga. It doesn't feel big. Yeah. A lot of people there, of course, but it doesn't feel big. It's a very small country. And to think that many people were killed in that short amount of time, 100 days, that's not a lot. That's pretty much 3 months. So you could put a 100-day plan, for your finances, your diet, your whatever. I mean, that's not a lot of time. So, and I remember one thing they did in there that was kind of nice was they showed other genocides. They almost like, not that they were trying to pay homage to them, but it was like, hey, this isn't the only time this has happened. Like, we can't remember. They talked about Cambodia. They might have talked some with parts like South Africa. I don't remember all that was in there. That was just pretty crazy because same with 9/11 Museum, because it's so recent. They have stuff there that was around very recently.
Right.
Even stuff like I remember in the 9/11 Museum, you go to this one part of it where you're not allowed to take any photos, anything. No, nothing. You just have to walk around. That's where the beams in the shape of the cross are. That is also where there is a part of the fuselage of one of the planes.
Oh my
gosh. And it literally is from me to you. And there's like a little barrier where you walk, but I could reach out and touch it if I wanted, but it's just like this weird, I'm not going to touch it. Yeah. But you're looking at this window in this fuselage, and you're like, the last time this was used, a person was sitting in that window. And you're looking at that window, at one point in time, somebody was sitting behind this window. Wow. And then like the Rwanda Genocide Museum, there's like shackles. And you're like, the last time somebody was in shackles, like that person's dead now. That person was killed. They were murdered. Yeah. But the last time these shackles were used, they were around somebody's ankles or they were around somebody's wrists. And you're looking, you're like, the people that would have survived this or been alive during this time, they could be my age. They could be a little older. They could be very cognizant of all of it and remember it all very well.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of, I don't know. It's a reminder of how important history is and how we have to commemorate it. We really have to.
So did that give you more of an idea of like, so clearly it didn't like make you question your faith, but did it give you like, did it ever, was the idea of evil ever put in your head? Because that's kind of the weird underlying theme that I felt from Auschwitz was just evil. It was weird, but it's the same thing that you just said about the fuselage. Like they let us go into one of the actual barracks that they kept these prisoners in, that they kept the Jews in, and it was just unbelievable. They showed us the latrines they would use and the sleeping quarters, and you're just like, this isn't the way people treat people. This isn't like, it just almost gave you a different reverence for like how can people do this to one another?
Yeah.
Like how could someone do this to their fellow man? Just because of someone's different,
whatever,
religion or race or anything. Like, how could people treat each other this way? So I definitely...
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think I just kept, if I remember right, I think I just kept repeating to myself, like, the human heart is a corrupt and dark place. The human heart is a corrupt and dark place.
Right.
Because, I'm no psychologist at all, but when you think about somebody like a Hitler or one of these doctors who sit here and they can create a genocide just out of thin air. Right. How you can, I don't want to get into all the media manipulation and stuff yet, but all the stuff that you have to lay, like all the groundwork you have to lay to be able to do it, but also how you get to that point as an individual where you go, okay, I'm going to set out to do this. Or
where you even get the justification,
exactly.
the internal justification.
Exactly. And you got to think about all, like Hitler, and of course we're not going to sit here and justify any of Hitler's actions, but you think Hitler didn't just wake up one morning and decide to do it. Yeah. Like I always think about from a spiritual standpoint, not as a scare tactic, but just as like a sober reminder. The only reason Hitler became Hitler is it was a compounding, like the compounding result of just a bunch of little decisions. Like he said no to things he should have said yes to. He said yes to things he should have said no to. Right. And when you think about it that simply, like he continued to make the wrong decision, and it continued to take him down that path. And so there is that individual accountability. He did it. But at the same time, like if you're not aware of what you're looking at and what you're doing and the implications and the repercussions those decisions have, like it wasn't created overnight. That was years in the making. Right. Even the stuff like when you look at how they turned the entire country against the Jewish race and other Slavics and Eastern European stuff like that. Think of all the groundwork they had to lay, where even like the classism dispute in Rwanda, it's the Tutsis and the Hutus. And these people were neighbors and even married into each other's families. It was enough of them just sitting there just pretty much chiseling away at their minds about how bad something was, that they finally started throwing out like, well, I've known this person for so long, but the more I'm hearing this, then okay, the more I'm just gonna believe it now. And it's like you turn on a Jewish friend or neighbor or a Hutu, whatever, that you've known your whole life, because of a couple months of people you don't know in power telling you to think that way, which is that's only kind of, you think, man, the human heart, the fact that it can even just naturally go that way, it has to be dark. And it's scary because that's not where we're at right now, thankfully, but there's a lot of the same tactics in play because the human condition has never changed.
So the question I would ask then is, Hitler. Let's take him for example. While we're on it, how much of it is him truly being actually evil, and how much is it, like we talked about this actually earlier before the podcast started, how much is it of him being a product of his own environment, of his own upbringing? When all when Hitler was rising to power, we were talking about him being the AP Man of the Year. Like I mean, he was loved in Germany. He was loved almost globally. He was.
He was in power for years before the war.
Exactly.
People forget that. Yeah.
Where did it go wrong? Because even when like let's take when Auschwitz and all that was in play, when all that was going on. If you went up to Hitler and you said, "Hey Hitler, you're a bad guy. You're evil. You're not doing good things." What Hitler would say back to you in so many words would be like, "No, I'm good. I'm doing the right thing."
Right.
Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing a good thing,
Right.
the Aryan race. He would lay out to you all the things why he's doing good.
Yeah.
And I think all that comes back to, if we want to bring it back to Christianity real quick, there's a phenomenal book that any of your listeners I would recommend to them. Is called Dinner with Skeptics, and it's by Jeff Vines. It's one of the best books I've ever read.
Dinner with Skeptics.
Dinner with Skeptics
by
Jeff Vines. Phenomenal. He's actually a preacher, and it's a true story of his. But Jeff Vines goes into this idea of like, if you were to go up to Hitler and say, hey, like you're doing bad things, you're a bad guy, but he's saying I'm actually a good guy, when in reality he's, morally, he's doing the wrong thing. Well, why do you know that? Any of your listeners, I don't think any of them or anyone in the world would argue that Hitler did good things when he was in that position, but he was arguing that he was. But that's because we all have this internal compass of right and wrong.
Right.
Where does that come from? And that's Jeff Vine's argument, that the only place that the internal moral compass of right and wrong, it has to come from a divine source, because something external, something not from this world. Because you can say, oh, that's good, oh, that's bad, oh, that's right, oh, that's wrong. Well, where does that come from?
Right.
Where does that moral law? I think that's one of the ways he puts it, is moral law. Where does that come from? Where does that derive from? And I think as people, we have to kind of take a step back and look at that, because we know things are good, we know things are bad. We know the things that we should do to others. We know the things that we shouldn't do to others. Even from a very young age, we know that.
Yeah.
But where does that come from? Where does that instinct come from? And Jeff Vines argues that it comes from God. That's the only place it can come from. Which is a very interesting argument. I'm not saying it's the correct argument. I'm saying it's a fascinating argument that I love to listen to. But yeah, it's just kind of food for thought on top of that. But yeah, if anyone wants to go pick up that book, I definitely recommend it. It is Dinner with Skeptics. It's basically a true story of him going. Small plug for the book. Him going to Australia.
Oh wow.
And him going to this hotel, and if you know, in Australia, the number one growing religion is no religion, it's atheism. And he goes to this very fancy 5-star hotel, and basically the manager of the hotel finds out he's a preacher. He's there for work because he's a preacher, and invites him to dinner with all of the hotel staff.
Oh, wow.
And they're all atheists, non-believers. And the whole reason he was invited to dinner was so they could tear him apart.
Nice.
And destroy him and make him feel like an idiot. I'm not going to spoil anything from the book, but this book ends with someone getting baptized.
Oh, wow.
At the end of it.
That's
so
cool. I need to read it. Yeah.
It is a really great book. So yeah, we can move on from that. But it's very, that idea of, evil, right and wrong, what is good, what is bad. It's a very, very interesting.
Yeah.
It is a endlessly fascinating subject. Endlessly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you never actually get to a concrete answer, because even as a Christian, like I know what I believe and maybe why I believe it, but the more you're questioning and the more you're discussing and debating with people, the more you even go, well, what if I am wrong? You know, like and I think that
And there has to be room for that, right?
Like I was brought up in a Christian home because my parents weren't brought up in a Christian home, and I was. But what if I wouldn't have been brought up in Christian? Would I still believe that and think that? Would I see a whole different side to things and be set in those ways for whatever I thought maybe good reasons?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
And there's stuff too. I think like with Hitler.
Are you a product of your environment, or are you an independent thinker? That's part of what people have to think of as an individual. Am I just adopting the ideologies of my parents and my upbringing, or am I adopting my own specific thoughts and feelings and ideas from what I believe and from what I see and from what I experience and from my own personal experiences with others? Just don't be a cookie cutter of your environment. Ask questions.
Think for yourself.
Think for yourself. Go outside the box. Don't just be like, oh yeah, all my friends think this way, so I'm going to think this way. Oh, my parents and the rest of my family think this way, so I'm going to think this way. Like, no, be independent. Think for yourself, because nothing great has ever come from conformity. Original ideas are basically the basis of all innovation. So,
yeah, very true. Man, yeah, all great stuff. I'd say, what kind of political or social issues are a hot topic on Michael Thomas's mind right now? That either whether you're changing your thoughts on them or you're just processing, just thinking about.
Well, the first thing I'm thinking about right now is the election. That's literally. I mean, as far as issues or anything goes, honestly, all of my personal opinions fall by the wayside because this election was crazy, man. The number one thing I took away from this election was I cannot believe how divided we are as a country. And it breaks my heart, honestly, because I love this country so much. I love America. I love the United States. I love our freedoms. And I don't want to see us divided like this. Whether you are far right, whether you are far left, there just needs to be a way that we can all get along. Because this past political climate in this election has just ripped us apart like nothing other. And granted, I think some of that you have to dedicate to COVID, because I think a lot of us had some pent-up aggression that we needed to take out on someone, right? So I think some of that can be, chalked up to that, but a lot of it needs to be chalked up to, man, this two-party system is broken, and we really, really have a lot of hatred on both sides. And we were saying before the podcast started, I said, a house divided cannot stand. And guess what? That's not an original thought. That's biblical. And Abraham Lincoln even said it. A house divided cannot stand, and it will not stand. Man, it just... I would really love to see our country come together. I mean, gosh, I don't care who the president is, or who your mayor is, or who whatever elected official you want to put in the blank. But at the end of the day, we're neighbors. At the end of the day, we're all Americans. We're not Democrats. We're not Republicans. We're Americans.
Absolutely.
And there just needs to be more people giving that message out. And I wish that there would be a politician or even a political party, if as crazy as that sounds, but there needs to be more people giving that message out. Like let's unify. Let's be united. Wait.
As if it's in the name. Wait a second. Hold on.
Yeah,
controversial.
Political issues specifically, whether you want to talk about gay marriage, legalization of marijuana, abortion, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter what subject it is socially. It doesn't matter how you think the country should be run economically, how you think it should be run, structurally, foreign relations, all that stuff. like, you know, at the end of the day, whoever's president, guess what? The world's going to go around. The world's still going to go around. The world's not going to burn down. Sun's going to come up tomorrow. And when the sun comes up tomorrow, that guy that you were cussing out on Twitter and acting a fool and, you know, whatever, you know, he's your neighbor. He's another American, and quite frankly, the rest of the superpowers of the world, like Russia and China and all of them, they're pointing fingers at us and laughing. Like, look at them, look at them.
Absolutely, they have to be.
Look at the cannibalism. They're laughing. So
it's like the tigers eating their own cubs.
Mm-hmm.
Is what it feels like.
So we've got to find a middle ground eventually.
And I'll be honest with you, Michael. I think one of the only things we have left, and I've been saying this for a couple years, but it always gets more and more true every day. One of the only things we have left is stand-up comedy. I've got to say it. Comedy is about all
It almost is the universal healer. It really is.
And like, I always think art is a reflection of the time period in which it was created. And stand-up comedy, I'm going to go on my little soapbox real quickly before we talk stand-up comedy.
Dude, I need you to go on a big soapbox. I don't need it to be a little one.
Here we go. I love stand-up comedy. I listen to several stand-up specials a week, as I'm sure you do too. Mm-hmm. And with my first podcast, Double Major Podcast, it was comedy. And a quick backstory on that. One reason I really got into it was when we, not to brag, but we honestly got in at ground zero with podcasts. This is probably 2017. Mm-hmm. Nobody we knew did podcasts. We got reasonably big for what it was. And when we had to pick a genre for it, my buddy Austin goes, well, you know, we're looking at all the stuff we want to talk about, we are talking about, and this is to get approved on, you know, iTunes, Spotify. We have to pick a genre, and we picked comedy. And the thing about comedy is, like, once you selected that, there's no going back.
Right.
Because comedy, especially stand-up comedy, having never done it, and probably never will, frankly.
It takes a lot of courage.
It is the one thing where you come out, and before you've ever done anything, you've let these people know, this is what I'm doing. Therefore, this is the desired and expected result. And if it doesn't happen, I failed. Like, you're already like a leg down. And so when we put comedy on the podcast, I was like, well, shoot, something about it's got to be humorous. You don't have to laugh at every line, but it's got to be something like light. It's got to be funny. It's just got to be enjoyable. It's got to be humorous. There's got to be something with, like, its timing and its topics and its relevance. So one thing I did, which I was already interested in, I started listening, watching, evaluating, watching interviews, watching documentaries on stand-up comedy, and really got into it. And the more I was seeing stuff happen in PC, like the whole PC culture, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Because now, I don't want to get on a whole other tangent, but it's like the way we're defining things or lack thereof, it's one of those things where it's like, if every single thing is hate speech, then nothing is hate speech. And if somebody says something you don't like and you want to cancel them for that, in the name of tolerance, and it's like, we're never going to get anywhere. And so the more that is evolving and kind of determining the way that we put articles up online, report news, interact with each other, run businesses. I mean, every institution now has been infiltrated by it. You think, dude, the only thing we absolutely have left is comedy. They're the ones kind of hanging in the balance, like pulling both ends back together, like, hold on. Here's a funny bit about a dictator. Hold on.
Yeah.
And comedy is just one of those where it's like, it's a reflection of what's going on now. Oh man, I love comedy, and it's got to be, from an integrity standpoint, it's got to be the purest art form. I really do think so, because it is like, everyone knows what it's supposed to do, and if it doesn't, you're going out to a crowd that probably doesn't like you. The second you start to flop, they're going to let you know that they don't like you. You're going to leave discouraged, and you go, none of that material worked. That was it. Like, I went out there to do something I thought was good, and I was hated from the moment I started, and I'm in a worse spot now than I was before. How do I climb out of this hole? You don't really have that in most other art forms.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Let's talk about stand-up comedy.